know that there was engagement there when our surgeon was killed. You know, in a jeep in a mine.
Yeah.
I know most of the stuff that happened at that time. I only know from from hearing about them. I wasn't in on them. Let me see now. I was in on the fight at Napoule, the castle.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm interested in. That's exactly what I'm most interested in. So, what can you tell me about that fight?
Well, we moved the whole battalion onto a hill, looking across a small valley there, you know, and then they told me that they were going to put on fire on the castle and everything and so forth, and that my platoon was going to be the assault platoon.
Okay.
You know? And on signal we did they brought up 50 caliber the machine gun platoon had brought up 50 caliber machine guns. They opened fire on the area and so on and so forth, mortars and everything. Then we went down across the valley and up to the castle.
Okay.
And we were we received some fire at the time, but I think our fire that we had, of course, we had the two companies supporting us when we went, and I think their fire pretty well pinned the people in that area down, you know. But we went across there, and we lost some people there, and I had some men wounded, and we went into the castle. We went in and we took a whole bunch of. They assembled all the prisoners in there. There were a lot of Polish. I remember that because I had several Polish men in my platoon who spoke Polish, you know. And when we were in the castle, they were able to speak to a number of the prisoners in there who spoke Polish.
Okay.
And we were in there, and we were there. I think we were there for several days.
And how did the wounded occur? You said a few men got wounded during that attack. Can you tell me more details about that?
I know we had in our company, we had Davis, Whitey Davis, we had David and Daves. And one of them, one of them with the name David, one of those names was killed. I remember he was killed there.
Just one second. I'm going to take a piece of paper that I made a couple of notes on. Just one second, okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm back. I think that there was one guy called Davis. I wrote the names down.
Davis or something like that. He was.
I saw that.
I know.
Davison. Davison, is that maybe? Yeah.
Maybe, possibly, yes.
Okay, I see that he got killed on that day when you guys attacked that castle. So that must be Robert Davison.
Yeah, that's it was. I know it was the day that we took the castle because that was the first I heard of it. When Major Thomas had come in and told me that I think maybe Major Thomas was the captain at that time, but I remember he came in and told me that David said he had died.
Okay. And I know there was a person in C Company called Sergeant Tilney who was killed on that day as well. Did you maybe hear anything about him?
Tilney?
Yeah, Tilney.
Oh, I didn't know. Tilney was killed then? I knew Sergeant Tilney. I didn't know. You know, I just lost track of him.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't remember something, it doesn't matter. I'm just asking you. If there's something you remember, I'm interested in. If you don't remember, well, too bad, but I'm just asking you.
I knew we had a Sergeant Tilney. I remember his name, you know.
But you don't remember what happened to him?
I can't place his face, and I really don't know when we lost him. He's one of them. In my memory, is just faded, you know.
Okay.
And then there was another. After that, there was another battle, which C Company was involved in. We were, I guess, in reserve then, and that was closer to Cannes, somewhere between Napoule and Cannes, and there were casualties there.
And what do you know about this battle?
I wasn't there. I was, you know, I know there were some men killed there, but I'm not too. I wasn't up there at the time.
Okay. And You mentioned the surgeon who died. Did you see that happening, or is it just something that you heard about?
No. The word came back to us that his Jeep had hit I believe his name was. He was not a I don't. Let me see now. Was he a paratrooper or not? Because for a while there, we had surgeons assigned that weren't airborne. They were just assigned to us.
Okay.
And I think his name was Captain Baze.
Yeah, exactly. That was his name, Captain Baze.
Captain Baze, yes. Oh, and then we had our executive officer, Major Apperson, was killed up there.
And do you know what happened to him?
He was in the hit of mine in a Jeep. In fact, I think among my things I have a picture taken like the next day of the Jeep, what was left of the Jeep.
Oh, really? You have that?
He was killed there, yeah.
Okay.
Did you know anything about, let me see now, what was the book now? It was written by...
Stand at the Door, right?
No.
No? Oh.
What was the name of that? He had quite a bit of information about the 509. The author, D-E-T-R-E-Z.
Oh, yeah, Michel de Trez. I have that book, yes, I have that book. But it has mostly pictures, though. It doesn't have much information. Mostly lots of pictures, though.
There's some pictures in that of me.
Oh, okay.
Is that the one that's...
a big red book with hundreds and hundreds of pictures inside.
First Allied Airborne?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's called, yeah.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, he contacted me.
Okay.
I said some of the pictures he has in that book were sent to him by me.
Okay. And you mentioned this photo of the Jeep of Major Apperson. I would be very interested if you could send me a copy of that picture. Would that be possible if I send you a letter and that way you have my address and all that stuff? But,
yeah, sure.
You still have the picture around?
Yep.
Okay.
I still have it.
Okay.
I can have a copy made of it.
And do you have other pictures taken in the area of Napoule or Cannes or Nice or those places?
Yes, I do.
And
I have some pictures taken down there.
And what kind of pictures are the other ones? Is it pictures of you guys going out in town, or is there also some pictures showing some things related to fighting?
I think they're all taken, of people, and I don't think there's any of them taken of fighting.
But I mean, for example, the Jeep photo.
Now,
yeah.
No, I know. Here, I just happen to think. When we jumped in there at outside of St Tropez, now Captain Walls was our company commander, and he ordered me to take a patrol into St Tropez.
Okay.
So I had 3 or 4 men with me, and we went into St Tropez, and I took some pictures of that patrol.
Oh, okay. That would be... Yeah, look, I'm trying to make a book, something similar to what de Trez made, except not so much pictures, but more stories, But to go with the story, pictures is also really interesting. And if you have pictures like the Jeep that you said, or the patrol, or pictures that show the castle, or a killed German, or some of you guys with the background, like the Nice visual in the background, or Cannes, all that, I'd be really interested if you could send me some copies, or email me some copies, or something like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, send me. Give me your. Are you here now?
I'm in France. I live in France.
Oh, they would have to be sent to France, huh?
Yeah, by mail. So I can send you a letter that will have my address and everything like that you need, and I'd be very interested in some pictures like that, especially this Jeep photo you mentioned. I didn't know that a picture like that existed. That would be really great.
Sure.
And did you maybe hear of the Germans ever using little remote-controlled tanks in France? They had very small tanks.
I think I have a picture one.
And did you hear of those being actually used against you guys in France?
Let me see now.
Because I'll tell you what, in the town that I live in, I think a patrol from A company had one of those go towards its vehicle, and the guys had time to jump out of the vehicle, but the vehicle got destroyed by one of those tanks.
I heard that story. Yep. Mm-hmm. I wasn't there, but I heard somebody told me about that. Yep.
So what did the person tell you then when?
Well, just that much. They said that the tank was. They were in a jeep, and they said they saw this thing approaching, and then they didn't like the looks, and they got out of the jeep, and they said with that the thing came up close to the jeep and exploded. You know, I guess this was probably second or third. In other words, somebody told somebody else that told me. You know.
Okay. And do you think there might be somebody around who knows that event in more detail? Somebody who might still be alive?
You know, I don't know, but I don't know where I saw it. But recently, I saw a picture. In you know, I have more books and magazines and write-ups and so on. But I saw a picture somewhere of one of those tanks.
Yeah. Pictures of those tanks are quite common because since the soldiers are curious and found those things kind of funny, they took pictures of it. But I'd be interested because the place where this jeep got destroyed is just like a few hundred yards from my house, and I'd be interested to find a soldier who may have been there, or who may have heard about it in more details than you have. Do you think there might be somebody from A Company who could still know about that, or?
Gee, I would imagine probably if you could get anybody from A Company, you know.
I think Bud Siegel was an A Company, right?
But yeah, Bud Siegel,
okay.
Company Commander, A Company. But I don't know whether he had A Company in southern France or not.
I think he got wounded after a couple of days, so he wouldn't have been there at that time.
Yeah.
But is there maybe somebody else from A Company that you could think of, or?
I'm just trying to think of it. No, I don't know. I can't think of anybody. I was in C Company at the time. You know, we moved people around, and I originally was in C Company. I was a platoon leader in C Company. I had the 3rd platoon in C Company on the jump, and then all the way through there. In fact, I have I was awarded a Croix de Guerre.
Okay.
For the liberation of St Tropez.
Okay. And these pictures that you mentioned, did you take those pictures yourself, or for example, the patrol in St Tropez? Okay, so you had a camera with you at the time, eh?
Yes.
Okay. Look, I'll tell you what. I'll send you a letter so that you have my address and some information about me. And if you can think of some other veterans that I might be able to speak to, that way you have time to think about it. I mean, when I send you a letter.
Yes, that's right. And if I do, I will send you their names and addresses.
Yeah. Okay. And just right now, I'd like to ask you a few more questions about what you remember from being in southern France. So, do you remember going into Cannes or going into Nice, for example?
We went into Cannes, and then they turned around, and we went back in the next day. In other words, they loaded us up on vehicles, and we went in like a grand entry, you know. And there were French newsreels and everything there taking pictures.
Okay, yeah, that's what I saw pictures of those. So I guess it's the French people who took those pictures. I saw.
Yeah, they were. I know. I was in the jeep with Lieutenant Rodriguez, who was our exec officer, and some of the men that went to a movie that was from a French newsreel camera. We saw the truck with the platform on it and taking a picture, and we rode right in. And then some of my men went to the movies, and they told me later. They said, "Lieutenant, we saw you in a movie."
Okay.
You know, it's a newsreel film.
Okay, yeah. And about this jeep that Major Apperson was in, where did that happen? Did it happen in that little valley between the castle and that other hill, or where did that?
I really don't. I can't remember. You know?
Okay.
I went out and saw the site. You know, as I say, I got pictures of the jeep, but it was in that area near Napoule, somewhere not too far from Napoule.
Okay. Well, if you send me the picture, maybe I can recognize the place. Because I go to Napoule quite often. It hasn't changed so much, actually. There's still bullet casings on the ground and shrapnel fragments and foxholes and all that stuff left over. So.
Oh, for heaven's sake! Yeah.
And what was the jeep? What did the jeep look like then? Was it severely destroyed there, or?
Yeah, as I recall, I think all the wheels are gone off, and it's just a body and that, you know. can't. I have a album, you know, with all my World War II pictures in it.
Okay.
And I haven't seen it now, and I haven't looked at that in some years, I guess, you know. But I'm pretty sure I am. I'm almost positive I have a picture of that Jeep. Yes.
Okay. And I'm not sure about this, but it seems to me that Major Apperson was not alone when that Jeep exploded. That he was with a guy called Lieutenant Flander. Does that maybe remind you of anything?
Leander?
Something like that, yeah.
Was he killed?
Apparently yes. But he's not in the honor roll of the 509th, you know. So it's a bit strange. I heard that he got killed, but he's not on the list of people who got killed in combat. So I'm not sure exactly. That's why I'm asking you about it.
I remember a Lieutenant Fiande. I believe it was. I remember he was a replacement. He wasn't with us too. In fact, maybe he came in just for southern France, and then he was killed there. You know. I think he was like with intelligence or operate. You know, either S2 or S3 operations or intelligence or operations.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Battalion headquarters.
Okay. And did anything else happen to you in those first couple of weeks in France that you remember? Like, could you maybe tell me what it was like for you the night of the jump, for example?
Yeah, we jumped, and it was you know, it's like in the hills and woods near St Tropez, and then we organized in the morning, and I know one thing now. There was a Frenchman there who was in charge of the FFI.
Yeah.
He was an officer in the FFI. I can't remember his name. Now he was there, and there was a young French woman with him. She was also a member of that unit, the FFI unit there. And I've seen. In fact, in Detrez's book, I think he has pictures of her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Her name, she had some Polish or Russian name, Selibonovich or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's it. Yep.
Okay.
And then we during the night we contacted them. And as I say, in the morning, Captain Walls told me to take a patrol into St Tropez. So we went into St Tropez, and then we spoke to people in on the outskirts of St Tropez, and we met people on the roads of that, and they told us the Germans were pulling back, and he said they were pulling back toward the Citadel there.
Okay.
So we looked. We saw a couple, but they were far away, and they were running the other way.
Okay.
So we went back. And I reported to Captain Walls, and in the meantime, he organized. So then we went into St Tropez, and I believe I have some picture of us in the streets in St Tropez. Then we came. Then it was late in the afternoon, and Captain Wall said he didn't like the idea of us being in the town there. We would be pinned in case the Germans attacked with armor. We'd be pinned against the ocean.
Okay.
So he said we'll pull back. In the meantime, we had spent a good part of that day in St Tropez, and the Germans were in the Citadel, and we were just taking pot shots. Oh, and then that's where let me see now, what was his name now? A good friend of mine. So he had been my platoon sergeant for quite a while. He was killed there, and that's by a German sniper. And we were in the hotel in St Tropez there.
Okay.
And then, so then as it got later in the day, Captain Wall said he didn't like the idea of us being there. That if we'd be pinned in there, we wouldn't be able to withdraw. They could pin us in there. And he said we'll pull back outside of town and in the hills. So we started back out, and we were moving back out of St Tropez toward the surrounding hills there, the wooded area. And somebody looked back and they said they were waving a white flag from the Citadel. So we turned around and we went back, and Lieutenant O'Brien, Mike O'Brien, was one of our C Company platoon leaders. Mike took a couple guys with him, and they went in and they brought the prisoners. And I have a picture of them coming out in column, coming out of the citadel.
Okay.
Mike, with O'Brien leading them, and then so we turned the prisoners over to the FFI there, and then we hung around. Oh, and then we were there. Now that was something interesting that happened. Now they were landing troops there, and they were I don't know what they were, like Arabs.
Oh, like French North African troops or something? You mean colonial guys? Yeah.
French colonials. That's right. And they were bombed. Somewhere right after right after they landed, and they set up a hospital right there in that square in St Tropez, and we were down there a good part of the night helping them with the wounded there.
Okay.
And then we were there, and we stayed there I don't know how long, and then somebody contacted us and told us that we were to go with. They contacted Capt. Oh, I know. They moved to headquarters at Generals. They moved into St Tropez there in a hotel, big hotel outside of St Tropez, and Captain Walls reported there, and then they told him that they knew that the rest of the battalion would send for us, and we would go and join them, and we joined them at where was it? Where we were supposed to jump
at.
Remember, I don't know whether they sent trucks over to get us, or we took trucks from the headquarters there and sent it. But we joined them at Napoule.
Okay. And I guess then you went on to Napoule, then, eh?
And then from there we went. The next contact that we had was Napoule. Mm-hmm.
So Napoule is the thing that I'm the most interested in. So could you maybe tell me again, in as much detail as you can remember, what happened, like from the moment you got there until you left, or like this attack you told me about and everything?
Yeah, well, they moved us up. When we went there, they told us that we were going to attack the castle. We went there. We were on like a ridge, a court like that. I think it was closer down to the coast from the castle. And then they turned, and then we moved. They set up a line of fire up there on the hills, and then. In the morning, just about the time as it got light, we C Company attacked, and my platoon, a third platoon, we were the SOAR platoon. We went down into the valley, across the valley, and up the other side, and took the castle.
And so, were the Germans firing at you guys during this time, or not too much? You said, or what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they were firing. I think one guy had me, and in fact. He had me pretty close. He was hitting very close around me, so I figured he was following me, So I faked that I was hit.
Okay.
I tumbled down there, and then a good friend of mine. In fact, he was after the war. Joe and I saw each other. Joe Hernandez, and Joe was my lead scout and my runner. So Joe saw me go down, and Joe came running over to me, and I said to Joe, I'm not hit, Joe. I said, I'm just trying to get that sniper off me. So then I lay there for a while, and then I figured the guy would be looking for somebody else. So then I got up and I went back into it and moved up the hill on the opposite side, and we went up to the castle. And by the time we got up near the castle, we weren't getting fired on at all. I think they had given up.
Okay. So, do you think that the Germans there maybe partially pulled out and also partially just wanted to surrender to you guys? Do you think that's what happened?
We went in there. Now I took a group of I had a couple of guys with me, and we went immediately after the castle. And we, to clear it, like there was a basement there. We went, we cleared it and went room to room and around in that, And there was still firing going on, just light fire going outside. And then finally it was cleared. They come in. They said the area was cleared, and but toward the end there, I think they pretty well get. I think when we were moving in, I think some of them were already moved. But I will say that when after the fight, when we were right after the fight, when resistance, they stopped all resistance. We weren't getting fired on anymore. We started to look around for them, and we found a number of German dead.
Okay. And how many do you mean by a number? You mean 3 or 4, or something like 10 or 20 or something?
I would say maybe 6 or 8.
Okay. And so then a lot of guys surrendered, you said, at that place, eh?
And then they started to bring them. I guess they were the guys outside. I guess were digging them out of the. They were dug into the rocks in there, and they had a place to dug, and they were bringing them in, and they were the ones that they brought in and turned over to us, and a lot of them were Poles.
Okay.
They say.
And so, what was your exact unit? C Company, and which platoon in C Company?
I was with the 3rd Platoon of C Company.
Okay. And is there any other interesting things that happened during that attack of the castle? You said so. One German sniper was shooting at you, so you pretended to fall down. And what about the guys with you, around you? For example, what happened to Davies or Davison? Was he shot, or was he killed by a mine, or?
I believe he got shell fragments. I think. In fact, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe he was hit badly in the head.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't remember now where. I know I don't remember seeing him, but I guess somebody maybe told me, that had seen his body.
Okay. And
and then another interesting thing that happened up in the air when we were up in that area. They one of the platoons. No, it was from one of the other companies. Was down a ridge from us.
Yeah.
There was a road going down to where they were. Now, I understand that they took and they were bringing, this is like the following, they were bringing rations into them with a truck.
Okay.
And the truck, how was it now? Oh, they thought it was fired on by a light artillery weapon. But then they wanted the stuff taken out of that truck and put it in another truck. But it was under observation by the enemy, and the Major Tomasic wanted an officer to go out there with him. So I volunteered and I went out with him, and we went out there. And I looked at that there, but it looked to me. As soon as I looked at it, I said that was not hit by air. I said that was a mine.
Okay.
And I said, I don't think we have to worry about them. In other words, they were afraid if they sent another truck out there to unload that truck, it had rations in it. They wanted to unload it, put it in the other truck. They were afraid that they might fire on the second truck. But I said, no, that was a mine that truck hit. So they did. They brought another truck out, and they loaded it up and took the rations out of it, and it wasn't fired on. But it was a mine. It took the left front wheel of the truck off.
And this was on that little road that goes between the two hills there, somewhere around there.
It was right, very close to the castle there, somewhere right around there. So yep.
Okay. And I'm just looking at my lists here, and I see that another guy from C Company was killed at approximately that date. His name was Zadlo, a guy from Polish origin. Did you maybe know him, or?
That name is familiar to me.
It's Joseph Zadlo.
That name, yes, that name is familiar to me, Zadlo. Yep.
And during the attack on the castle, so you were the lead squad. Yeah, if I understand correctly. Okay.
Yeah, lead platoon, yeah.
So then the other guys were following in behind you, or what were they doing?
They were up there, and we started. In other words, they were firing, in the area that we were leading until after we got down in the bottom, and then they broke off the firing and came and followed us.
Okay, I understand. Okay. And when you got to the actual castle itself, the Germans weren't really resisting anymore, eh?
No, by the time we got there, I don't remember them. Although now Joe Hernandez got him. Oh no, that grenade that got him was his own grenade.
And what happened to him? Who was this person? Can you tell me what happened to him?
Yeah, he was my lead scout and runner, and and all for years. Joe was always like when we jumped, he was I always had him behind me, because I used to like to stand in the door and look out, make sure the plane behind us was above us.
Okay.
So on, and then he would be the one that would see the green light. In other words, I didn't have to watch for the green light.
Okay.
I was able to always stand and watch, and I always told him, and he would watch for the light, and then he would bang me on the side with his arm, when the light so I knew when to go. And Joe and I always jumped together, He was a good friend of mine after the war. He was completely lost. To this day, we don't know whatever happened to Joe. He used to call me from California and write to me, and at the reunions, he used to come to the reunions, and before that, he stayed in the Army, and when I was out, and he used to visit me. I lived here in New Jersey, and he used to land at Newark Airport when he was coming home from Europe. He stayed in the Army in Europe, so he would come back home on furlough, and he would land at Newark Airport or Fort Dix, and he would always contact me, and I would go and pick him up at the airport, and he would stay with me at my house.
Okay, and then he disappeared or something?
And then he for years, we were good friends, and he used to call me from California, and so on. And then all of a sudden I didn't hear from him anymore, and then I called some of the fellows that lived out on the West Coast that I knew. He used to visit them. And they said, no, gee, they said, he lived in a place with some Basques from Spain.
Okay.
Joe was Mexican, spoke fluent Mexican, So he got along with these Basques. He knew them all. So they said, we call there, and we used to say no enough when they didn't speak English, but I would say, Jose Hernandez.
Okay.
They'd say, moment, and they'd go and get him. I understand it was a payphone in the hall, see? Well, then it got to the point, they get and they say this, that he doesn't live here anymore, and so on. And we all just, I talked to them, and then this one fellow, Bobby Hollister, who was one of the guys in my platoon, Bobby called the sheriff's department there where he lived, in where was it now? I can't remember the name of the town in California. And he contacted the VA for a look up on him, and he just disappeared. To this day, nobody knows what. We figured he wasn't healthy. Joe had a lot of things wrong with him.
Okay.
And we just figured he must have died, but we can't understand. I know he was he was always under VA care. He was in and out of VA hospitals. He was with me. He was wounded. And it seemed every time he was hit bad, I was right with him. In Italy, I was right with him. Well, we went on an attack through the woods there, and he was shot in the head, in the nose, or no, a grenade. Got him right in the face and the nose. And then on Anzio Beachhead, he got a shell fragment through his upper chest. I was right with him when it happened. And then down in southern France there, he pulled a grenade out.
Tell me what happened in southern France in details. This is interesting, what you were saying for me, since it's in Napoule and stuff.
Yeah, so, down there. Now, on that, in the attack on that castle, he turned around and he pulled a grenade. He had his grenade, and I don't know. I talked to him after it happened. He wasn't sure himself, but it sounded like the pin had come out of the grenade. He didn't know it. And he was actually had it in his hand when it went off. Now it mangled his hand, I know that, and he also got fragments in the chest.
Okay.
He was in the hospital for quite some time there, and but he was confused himself. I said, well, what happened, Joe? I said, did somebody shoot you and knock it out of your hand or something? He said, I don't know. He said, 1 minute, Mac. He said, I was in the ditch, and he said there were Germans just a little ways from me. We saw their helmets. They're walking down a ditch, and he said I took the grenade out. And he said I was walking, and he said I was watching the top of their helmets. He said all of a sudden the grenade went off.
Okay. Maybe the pin came out by accident, like you said, or something. And this happened just near that castle, or in the ditch on the road on the way to the castle, or
right on in the attack on the castle. Yep.
Okay. And I mean, the ditch, is it a ditch that's in the castle or something, or near that road?
Somewhere around. I don't know where it was. He wasn't with me then. He was off with somebody else then. But from what he said, it was a ditch right around the castle. And my platoon was right there at the castle at the time, so it couldn't have been too far from the castle.
Okay. near that castle with other men who got wounded or something like that, or any other things you could tell me about?
No, that's all I can think of now.
You know what I'll do? I'll send you a letter, and I'm going to be leaving. I won't be at home for about 1 or 2 months, but I'll send you a letter right now, and you'll get that within a week or two. And then when I'm back home in a month and a half or something, I'll call you back again, and we can maybe talk about this a bit more, and you can tell me there's a few other veterans I might be able to speak to from your unit, and you can tell me if you managed to find those pictures and all that. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Would that be okay? Okay then. Okay.
Sure.
And do you have anybody who can help you maybe send pictures by email, like with the internet, in your family? Or
I think my sister may be able to.
Okay. And if not, I think you can just go to any photographer, and he can probably make reprints of them pretty easily. You know.
Oh yeah. I've done a lot of these pictures. You know, different people have you know. Well, like Detrez now. I sent a bunch of pictures to Detrez, and then several of the people like. You know, we still have reunions every year.
Yeah,
I haven't been to the past couple of years. You know, my health is bad. But when I went there, I used to tell them some pictures I had and showed them some of them, and I had a lot of copies made, sent them out to them.
Okay. Well, that would. I'll send you. I'll explain again in the letter. But if you could make copies of the pictures related to the first couple of weeks in France, especially this Major Apperson's Jeep and some things that show the countryside or your friends and stuff.
Yeah, I'll go through my pictures there, and now I know one place we stay, the town of Belvedere.
That's in the mountains, eh?
Yeah, my platoon, we were in the town of Belvedere. I have some pictures taken in Belvedere.
Okay. Well, I don't know how much it costs to make copies and stuff. I guess it's not so expensive, but I would be interested mostly in the pictures during the first 2 weeks, but also the other stuff, you know. And if you want, I can give you money for it or whatever, and it's not a problem. And I'd be very interested in having copies of those pictures.
Yeah, sure. All right, I'll go through my album and anything in that area like that, Apperson's Jeep and anything in that area so on, that I figure, and then the pictures on the patrol at St Tropez.
Yeah, and you said these prisoners too coming out of the citadel.
By the way, did you know anything, or did you oh, I wonder, was he an A company? Maybe he would be able to help you. The Fisco?
Yeah, Fisco. I spoke to him. Yeah, but he didn't know anything about that little Jeep. The thing is, I think there was only 4 or 5 guys in that thing, you know, and so not many people saw that happen, you know. Even people in A company, probably most of them don't know about it. You're the first person from the unit that I find who remembers this happening, this story of the little tank, you know.
Yeah.
I spoke to quite a few guys from the unit, maybe 5 or 10, and I asked everybody this question because I'm interested in this little event, and you're the first one who remembers it. So I guess you heard about that thing in southern France at the time, or something like that? Yeah,
in fact, they had, I guess, the picture that I had was taken down there, but it was after, in other words, they found one, our demolition platoon found one somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
And they brought it in, and I have pictures of it with our demolition platoon.
Well, I'd be interested in those. I don't know how many pictures you made, but basically all the pictures in southern France I'm interested in. Some more than others, but if it's possible for you to make a copy of all of them, I'd be very happy if you could send that to me, and I can pay you for them if you need it or whatever. It's not a problem.
No problem there. All right, then that's about the best we can do. Yeah. I think, and like you say, send me a letter with your address,
yeah.
And then he's never found.
Well, I know they existed, but what can you tell me about those guys?
Well, in other words, his name was Captain Miller.
Yeah.
And the whole stick from that plane that jumped on it was 18 men or something. There's a monument there somewhere in St Tropez.
Yeah, with all the names, eh?
Listing all the names. Yeah, because when they dedicated that monument, they wanted me to go over there and represent our unit.
Okay.
You know, for the dedication. But at the time, I was under treatment for a cancer of my head, and I was taking radiation treatments. And I asked the doctor if I could delay it for about a week, and he said no, that they had started the treatments already, the radiation on me. And he said no. He said we have to keep them. It has to be every day. There has to be a treatment. You know.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Instead of me going, at that time it was our 509 association. Charlie Doyle was the president. So Charlie called and he had Rodriguez go. Leo was with us there. He was one of them that jumped there at St Tropez. So Leo went and placed me.
Okay. And okay. And sorry for insisting, but I have a tape recorder that is attached to my phone. So if you tell me something, I can record it and then write it down afterwards. And could you maybe tell me again one last time this event at the castle? So what your mission was, what happened to you on the way down the hill, what happened to you when you got to the castle? Like we try to say it as if it's you're speaking to somebody who never heard about it before, you know?
Well, we were C Company was the assault. A and B companies were to support us with fire from the ridge, and C Company was to attack across the valley and up the other side to attack the castle. And the 3rd platoon of C Company was going to be the assault platoon. So immediately after daylight, and then the following morning, we started down from the top of the hill down into the valley, and immediately we drew fire from the other side, from the castle and that area, the area around the castle where the enemy was dug in. They fired on us, and then in the meantime, our people countered them with fire. We attacked down a hill. I was getting, somebody was firing at me, and they were firing very close to me, and I thought it was probably a sniper, and he was out to get me. So I made believe I was hit, and I hit and rolled down and laid on the ground for a while until he stopped, so he'd move his fire to somebody else. Then I got up and rejoined the platoon, and we saw across the valley. By then we went on the other side, on the upside, going up to the castle. We went up to the castle, and we took the castle and took prisoners. A lot of them were Polish. They spoke Polish because several of the members of my platoon were Poles and spoke fluent Polish, so they were able to converse with them and talk to them. And we took them prisoner. We must have had, I guess we must have had 15 or 20 prisoners in the castle.
Okay.
What
were you saying? You started saying we.
Well, we just secured the castle and the area around it, and by then we were no longer being fired on, and things quieted down, and then we according to procedure, we have a regular military procedure when you take ground like that you redistribute the ammunition, check for casualties, and check for enemy casualties, and we followed the routine for.
Okay. And then the next day there was more fighting in the same area, like not so far away. You said it was then with other platoons attacking, other companies attacking.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, that was very good then. Okay. Well, just one last thing. When I spoke to the lieutenant from A Company who was in New York there, you know, I mentioned his name before. Yeah.
Siegel?
Yeah, Siegel. He told me about Major Apperson. He said the reason why Major Apperson was driving in that Jeep is because you guys had received Italian money in your escape kits instead of French money. And he wanted to bring it back and get this Italian money changed to French money, and that's when he drove on the mine. And apparently there was money all over the place. Did you ever hear anything about that?
No, that is the first time I ever heard that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that's enough for tonight. Then we've been talking for quite a while. I'll send a letter off to you immediately. Okay, and I'll call you back next time. Next time I'm back at home. Okay.
All right then.
By the way, I'm a medical student. I'm 27 years old, and Yeah, medical student. And the reason I'm not at home is because I study in another country. So I just come home in France when I'm on holidays.
Oh, I see.
So that's why. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, you have a big telephone bill.
No, I won't, because nowadays with the internet, they make these deals where you have the phone and internet at the same time, and you can call for almost for free. So it's really not a problem.
Good.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for being so friendly, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
I hope I can help you out, and I'll go through my pictures and get copies made of anything I figure would be of interest to you.
Yeah, that would be really great. That would be really great. Okay.
What is your name?
My name is John Lou. That's my first name, and my family name is Guessend. So John Lou Guessend.
Uh-huh.
And
oh, right there.
Yeah. And John Devaney knows me quite well. If you tell him the guy who calls from southern France who's interested in Castle Hill, he'll know it's me. He knows me quite well.
Oh yeah,
okay.
John, yeah.
And but you'll be getting a letter with all my name and all that stuff written down. Okay.
Good.
Okay then.
All right.
So have a nice evening, and thanks a lot for telling me all your.
You know, all I know is when we were up near Monaco, and two of my men won AWOL.
Okay. Okay.
And I didn't report them. They're both good soldiers, and I didn't say anything about it. And they were gone for I think all night, and then the next day they didn't come back till the evening the following day.
Okay.
And then they come back and they report, and they had been in Monaco.
Okay. So
and then also now at that time I was with C Company. So one of the other platoons in my company, his name was Lieutenant Herb Rose, was the platoon leader, who was a good friend of mine. And Herb went into Monaco, and he met the Prince.
Okay.
The Prince was there. He had come, I guess, right here. He had just gotten there himself. But Herb told me that he met the Prince.
Okay. And did he go in there because there was Germans around, or did he go in there like as a tourist, or what?
No, they were. He didn't even know. He told me later. He said, I didn't know I was in Monaco. He said, and then he said we were in there. He said, and then battalion headquarters called him and asked him to give his location. So he gave his location as best he could, and then they told him, they said, be careful because there's an international border there and you are not to cross it.
Okay.
And then he found out later he had already crossed it.
Okay. That's interesting. And do you know if there was any fighting that happened there, or nothing particular? I guess.
No, I never heard of any fighting there in Monaco at all. I never heard of any,
And what about the towns just before or just after Monaco?
We only went in, in other words, for the French side. We went in and we did, in other words, that was where we turned us. When we got to Monaco, they turned us around and we went back to Nice.
Okay. And then you went up in the mountains there, like for way up there in the Alps there, right?
Yeah. Now we were, and now before, just as we were coming in that area, that's why I was with C Company. But what they did at that time, they split us up. Now I was on one of the roads going along along that area, way up in the mountains, and Rose had his platoon on a highway above me.
Okay.
So I didn't really know what was going on, and that's why I lost track of him and so on, And then we went up there, and I'll tell you one thing now. When we were up there, I was at a place on the road that we were on. There was like a cafe up there, and we stayed there for I think we must have stayed there a week. And the name of the place was Cafe Madrid.
Okay. So this would have been one of those little villages up in the mountains, eh?
Yeah, it wasn't even a village. It was just, there were scattered houses, very beautiful homes. In fact, later on, while we were up there, I contacted one of the other platoon leaders, Bob Salmons, who had first platoon, and he asked me to come down, and I went down to visit him, and they were in like a great big villa there, and I believe the fellow that owned it was a dentist.
Okay.
Young Frenchman, and I believe he was a dentist, and he had a beautiful villa there, and and that's where Salmons was staying with him, and then later on, after we were in Nice, I remember he used to come in and visit Bob Salmons because I went out one night, the three of us. I went out to dinner with him and Salmons and myself in Nice.
Okay.
And then later on, as I say, they pulled us back, and then we went back toward Nice, and then we were out by the Var River. And we were camped out by the up very close to the Var River there.
Yeah, just before shipping out to northern France, right?
That's right. That's where we were, and then we left there, and we got on in a freight train, and we went up to northern France.
Okay.
Up to northern France.
And another thing I want to ask you. Last time you mentioned Hernandez getting wounded by a grenade, you know, at that castle place. And I know somebody else, the guy who was in your platoon, Whitey Davis. He also mentioned Hernandez getting wounded. But he said that he was wounded by a fragment of the grenade in the nose on that day. But I think he might be confusing. I think you said Hernandez was wounded several times, right?
Yeah, no, Hernandez. When Hernandez was wounded, I was with him when he got that wound in the nose. That was in Italy.
Okay.
I definitely know about that. I was with Joe when he got that piece of grenade in his nose. I was with him, and that was at the Venafro in Italy.
Okay, so I guess that Whitey Davis was confusing the two times then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And at the castle, he was wounded in the hand. You said, He.
In the hand, and I believe I'm not sure, but I think he was also wounded in the chest.
Okay.
I think he got some grenade fragments in the chest.
And can you tell me again, like how this happened? How he was wounded?
He was not with me. He was, close to me. We were moving, but he wasn't right with me. And all I remember is somebody told me about it later, and somebody told me that his grenade went off in his hand. But then somebody else told me, no, they said, this is now after the war, talking about it after the war. And somebody else that was up there with him said, no, the Germans threw a grenade at him. So I don't know which is true.
Okay. So you're not exactly sure. Okay. And the other day when you were telling me about the pictures you had, you said that you might have one picture that showed one of those little German remote-controlled tanks, No,
I looked high and low for that.
Okay.
And I don't know. I'm wondering if maybe I saw it in a book somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You probably saw it in the Detrez book, because they have that picture in the Detrez book with one of those little tanks.
That's maybe, I thought it was one of my pictures, but I remember seeing that picture of some of our guys with that little tank, But I looked high and low, and then later on I said, maybe I don't have it. Maybe it was in one of the books. See, I have a lot of books with pictures,
Yeah.
Detrez's, and I got several others, and possibly that's where I saw it in another book.
Okay, that's what I figured. You must have mixed it up.
Did you know anything? Did you ever hear anything about our surgeon, Doc Alden?
I've heard about him, yes, because I read the book about the 509th, and he's one of the most famous soldiers in the entire unit. So.
Oh boy, he sure was. There's a book written just about him. The name of the book is Captain Cool.
Okay.
Cool. That's what we used to call him, Captain Cool. And it's all about his whole life. He died, of course, after the war, but he lived. He went to quite a few of the reunions.
Okay.
He was.
When you say he died after the war, you mean he was still young when he died, or what?
Oh no, he was pretty well along in years.
Okay.
And he died. I believe he died of Alzheimer's. We knew he used to come to reunions with his second wife. And quite a few of the reunions, he was always there. Very popular, very popular.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the fellow that wrote the book, Captain Cool, he was a good friend of mine. He wasn't in our outfit, but he was a.
Last time that you might have heard a story of one of them being used in southern France. About the guys going forward in a jeep and having their jeep being burnt up by that or something. Do you maybe know any do you maybe know any extra details about this, or can you tell me again how you heard about it or something?
In other words, all I heard about it was by somebody else telling me, and it happened right in my area where my platoon was. But at the time I wasn't there. It was on that road that ran along the coast, one of the coastal roads down there. But all I know, it was. In other words, to me it was secondhand. I was not an eyewitness to it.
Okay, and do you know approximately where it happened? Like where this did happen? You said on the coastal road.
No, gee, I can't. It was because we were moving along that coastal road there, you know, and it had to happen along there.
Okay, so somewhere you would say somewhere between Cannes and Nice, basically, or.
Let me see now. Might have even been farther back. It might have been between Napoule and Cannes.
Okay. Well, it doesn't really matter. I'm just asking, like, and then you know that did you hear that a vehicle had gotten destroyed in that thing, like that the Jeep burnt up or was destroyed by that, or?
Oh, I understand they ran the story the way it was told to me. They ran the thing right up again. In other words, the Germans, whoever was running the thing, they were observing it. You know, they were in the woods up in the hill, and they ran it right up against the Jeep. And the guy saw it coming, and they jumped out of the Jeep and ran. And they ran it right up beside the Jeep and blew up. And they said it blew the Jeep to hell.
Okay. So this is the French people that live around here told me the same story, but you're the first American that I managed to find who heard about this. You know, they told me the same thing that 4 or 5 Americans drove up in a Jeep, and then all of a sudden this tank came out, so they all jumped out into the ditch, and then their thing exploded and was destroyed.
Yep, that's just the way I heard it. Yep.
And apparently there was even one Frenchman with them who was like guiding them down the road or something, supposedly.
Oh yeah, that I didn't know. As I saw, to me it was just a story I heard, you know, secondhand. So. And
I know somewhere in that region where that happened, there's a little river, and as far as I know, you guys were stopped there for a day or two at this little river in a town called Biot, and there was a railroad bridge there, I think. Do you have any recollection of this place, maybe?
No.
I suspect you probably don't, because nothing happened there. You were just, I heard you were stopped there for a day or two, but okay.
Yeah, I can remember stopping at various places, and I just can't, I don't remember the details, you know.
Oh, yeah, okay. And what about those pictures of it looks like the picture of the Jeep and the picture of your platoon there that you sent to me. You took them at the same place, more or less. It seems like the background is the same and the road is the same road, you know? There's a picture of you and your men, and then the picture of that destroyed Jeep.
See, I can't remember that. I can't remember just where that was. It was somewhere along there. But in that picture of everybody standing,
yeah,
the picture with like posing for a picture.
Yeah, exactly.
That lieutenant that was there. Now his name was Lieutenant Rifleer.
Okay.
And now he was a West Pointer, and he joined us as a replacement with Lieutenant Fiander. The two of them, they were the two, because the only West Pointers we had was the Colonel.
Okay.
Colonel Yarborough, who was a West Pointer, and Fiander and Rifleer.
Okay. So he came along with him then, eh?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I asked him what he remembered about being at that place, and he said that there was a bunch of wounded between 2 hills apparently, and there was somebody put up a white flag, and then the Germans came and took their wounded, and you guys came and took your wounded. Did you maybe hear about this at any time?
No, I didn't hear anything about that.
Okay. I was just asking. I thought you might be able to tell me something about it. And last time you already told me quite a bit about it, but could you tell me one last time? Describe it your way, that attack on that castle, like starting from that hill and then going down through the draw and. Oh,
yeah. We started. They had the whole battalion assembled on the hill there. You know, they got ready for it, and then they brought up the heavy machine guns, and everybody was up there. And then they said C Company will lead the attack, and then the C Company, which at the time I was with C Company, they said. The 3rd platoon will lead C Company and the assault. That was my platoon. So we went right there. It seems to me it was real early in the morning, right after daylight. We started down the hill, and of course they opened fire on across the. It was like a little valley there, between the hill and the castle. They opened our men opened fire on the area across from us, and we went down and down across the bottom of a little valley there, like, and then up the other side. And the castle was on the side of the hill across from us, right there. Yeah. And we went in, and we were under fire all the way. I think there were some of them. I can't remember any of my men being killed there. I think there were a couple of them were wounded, but none of them seriously wounded. And then we went up the hill, and then we took. And of course, we had all kinds of firepower. In other words, our people were putting a lot of fire on the hill there, so it kept them pretty well undercover. They couldn't do fire too accurately for any length of time because of the firepower our people were putting on them. And then we crossed over, and we went up the other side, and we took the castle. Okay.
And last time you mentioned that one of your guys, what were you going to say? I interrupted you there. You started saying, and then...
And then a sniper was firing. Somebody was firing at me, and he was pretty close, And then my Joe Hernandez was the same guy we were talking about that had the wound in the nose. Joe Hernandez was my runner, and Joe always stayed near me, and so I know the sniper was hit. He when I was zigzagging, he was staying right with me, firing very close to me. So I figured maybe if he thought he hit me, he'd leave me alone, So I went down, made believe I was hit, and Joe thought I was hit. Joe came running up to help me, and I said to him, Joe, I'm not hit. I said I want to get that sniper off me, And Joe said okay, and then he went on with the rest of the guys, and then the sniper, I guess, thought he had got me. He left me alone. Then I got up and I rejoined him and went up the hill, and we took the castle.
Okay.
And then the castle, there were a lot of I had a couple of Polish fellows, that spoke fluent Polish in my platoon, and a lot of the prisoners that we took there were Poles.
Okay, yeah.
They spoke Polish, and they were not happy. In other words, they were happy. Let's say they were very happy to be taken prisoner.
Okay, yeah, okay.
They were not real. They were not real. Like some of those, those Nazis who really died. Fight to the death. But these guys didn't seem to want it.
Yeah, I think they were pretty much conscripted into the German army without really wanting to be part of it.
From what they told us, they talked to my guys, and they were interpreting for me and telling me, it sounded that's what they were. They were forced into the German army, and that most of the time they used them as laborers. But then when things got tough, they turned around, and they sent them down there, and they told them they were going to use them as like infantry, But they weren't happy with it. But of course they did fire on us, And now after we took some of them prisoner, some of them showed us. They showed us and said, "You notice I never fired my rifle."
Okay. So how did he show you that? You mean he still had all his ammunition in his pouches, or how could?
Yeah, that's it. They showed us they had they still had all their ammunition. They said, I didn't shoot. Some of them said I was shooting up in the air. I wasn't shooting at the people because the sergeant was he was a German, and they said to please him I had a fire. And he said, but I wasn't shooting at anybody.
Okay.
That's the story they told. And then but we took them to they went. I don't know where they went. They left me and they went to battalion in the rear, and so I don't know where they must have had a prisoner of war camp somewhere for them. And then when we were up in that Cafe Madrid, we had a prisoner up there. While we were up there, a Frenchman came in, and he said to us that he knows where there was a German soldier hiding. He said, he's not in uniform anymore, but he said, I recognize him. He's a German soldier. He was here before you guys came. So I sent a couple men with him, and they came back with this guy, and he was in civilian clothes, just work clothes, So then we interrogated him, and he said that he had deserted, a couple of days before he had deserted the German army. He had gotten these clothes somewhere, and he hid them away in the woods. So I told him, I said, do you know where your uniform is? He said, yes. I told my men, I said, take him back and let him get him back in uniform. I said, otherwise the French will shoot him.
Okay.
So they took him back, and they come back, and he was in uniform. Now he stayed with us for I don't know how long. He loved it with us. He used to want to wash our mess gear, and we've took care. We fed him. At first, I used to keep a guard on him all the time to watch him. But then we found out he didn't want to leave us. He wanted to stay us and he stayed with us I think he's with us for a couple of weeks. And then when we did have to turn him over to prisoner of war camp, he was almost crying.
Okay.
Oh, He wanted to stay with us. And then I understand one of the other platoons, Salmons, he had one with him that was the same way. He said he wanted to stay with. This guy wanted to fight with him.
Okay.
He said.
And do you know if this guy was Polish or German or?
I don't know.
You know what?
The guy I had, I think he was German.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. I remember now. He was German. He told us he was German. But he said, I think that we lost this war long ago.
Okay. That's a nice story. And these guys who said they were firing up in the air, this was at the castle, right? The guys who said that they weren't shooting at you in particular, this was at the castle that happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where somebody. Now I know that there was someone we were being fired at. Because as I say, we had some men wounded there, you know. But at least some of them said that some of these Poles said we didn't shoot at you. They said, you know.
Okay. I guess maybe if they had all been firing properly, maybe you would have had more casualties there, because it was a pretty exposed place to attack from, as far as I understand.
Yeah. Well, the only thing is we did have good fire, very good. In other words, we had the other two companies up on the hill and the machine guns up on the hill, and they gave us very good, support.
Yeah, I understand.
We had 50. That's what I say. I think we had 250 calibers on that hill there. They brought the 250 caliber, which they only used them usually very seldom. You know, they were too heavy to carry, but they did. I'm pretty sure they brought them up there for that.
Yeah. And I think a few guys from an artillery unit who was with you guys, you know, artillery units also have those heavy machine guns, and a few guys from them got detached with you guys, and I think they got killed. The day after the castle, you told me that there was another attack that you didn't participate in, and several guys got killed there.
Yeah.
Well, some guys from the artillery unit got killed at the same time, as far as I understand.
Yeah, I know they had a big firefight down there somewhere before we got to the Var River. It was in that area, I believe.
Yep.
I think it was the last fight that we had before we got across the Var. And there was a big firefight in there that my company wasn't involved in it.
And, do you know any details about how Baze's Jeep exploded, or did anybody tell you anything about that, like what he was trying to do, where he was going, or anything like that?
No. As I say, I saw it later on, you know, after it was all over. That's when I took the picture.
Okay.
The camera I had was, during the war. I guess it was during the war that Eastman Kodak brought out that back. You know, before that they had those box cameras. Then they brought out the first little folding camera. It had like a bellows. I think they call it a brownie.
Okay.
My brother sent it to me, you know, and that was the camera I had all through the war.
Okay, well, it's really nice that you took those pictures and sent them to me and stuff. It's pretty rare to find soldiers who had time to take pictures when they were actually in combat, you know.
And then, you know, I had a lot. Of course, I was taking pictures. My brother used to send me rolls of film. See, of course, during the war, that was hard to get too. So whenever he could, he'd buy me film and send it to me. Now, we were down there, and I had all these pictures I had taken, and none of them were developed.
Okay.
None of them were developed. Now, we were we were up in the mountains. I was at a town called Belvedere.
Yeah.
North of Nice.
Yeah, I know where that is, yeah.
And we used to go down every so often into Nice. So then a friend of mine was a good friend of mine was our company mess officer, and of course he stayed. They had a mess set up in Nice in a garage there that the Army had taken over, an automobile repair, big garage, and they had a section there, and that's where they had our rear like our B bags, you know, stuff that we didn't need. So anyway, he told me he found a place there. He said I found a place that will develop films.
Okay.
Because he had some done, and I said, is that right? So I said, Charlie, if I send them to you, I said, could you take them in and leave them to be developed? And he said, sure. See? So I took and I put them all in a whole bunch of rolls of film in a box. I don't remember what, but I remember, and I sent them to him with his name on it. And I told the guy that took it back, I said, give these to Lieutenant McKinney. I said, he knows what to do with them.
Okay.
So the guy said to me, okay, fine. Now, when McKinney called me on the phone, and he said he had them developed and so on and so forth. And he said, how am I going to get... And I said to him, Charlie, send them to me when you send the mess up here. I said, send them up with our rations. With the truck used to come up every night and bring rations up to us. I said, send them up in the ration truck. I said, just put them in a box or something and put my name on it. So he says, okay. So he sent them up, and and at that time our company CP was in, I can't remember the town. It was down in the valley below Belvedere. and they sent all my pictures were there. Well, I don't know who, but somebody opened a box, and next thing you know, they saw pictures they wanted, and they took them.
Okay.
Our men. Not my guys in my platoon, but other guys in the headquarters. And I lost a lot of good pictures there.
Okay.
I did get them.
Okay, so you also lost the original film then, eh?
And then a lot of not too many. I think most of the negatives they didn't bother. But the cop, because after all, when I came home, I found some negatives I didn't even have copies of. So I made pictures. I had prints made of them.
Well, as long as you had the negatives, then you can always make some new ones. But.
Yeah, but I did lose negatives too. I know, but I remember now. I couldn't remember it now, but at that time I remember going over them, and I remember taking certain pictures, and I said, "Gee whiz, I haven't got that picture, and I haven't got the negative." I suppose some of them sort of took the picture, and then when they figured somebody got the picture, they saw it and they wanted it, and they couldn't get it, so they looked for it, got the negative, and they kept the negative.
Okay. That's it. Picture that you took in St Tropez of that patrol. Can you tell me more about that picture of your patrol and going downtown?
Yeah. When we went in, we jumped back there. And Captain, the whole company jumped there. Captain Walls was there. So, and I was at that time I was platoon leader of the 3rd platoon. So Captain Walls sent for me after the jump, and we assembled, and we stayed right there in that area overnight. Then in the morning, Captain Walls got a call from me, and he said to me, he said, "Mac," he said, I want you to take a patrol into town. And he said, "I don't know whether he said, we've been observing, but he said, we see movement in there, but he said, all we ever said looks like it's civilians." He said, "So I want you," he said, "will you take a patrol into town?" He said, "Not too many." And he said, "It's not a combat." He said, if you run into mild opposition," he said, he said, "of course," he said, "you can fire to overcome it." But he said, "All I want is information for you. In other words, I don't want you to go in there and fight. You're to go in there and get information and bring it back to me." So we went in, and that's when I took, 3 or 4 guys, and I went in and took had my camera with me in a musette bag, and we went in there. Now, on the way, we were going in there, and then way off in the distance, we saw 2 guys running, and we looked. I got my binoculars out and looked, and they were German.
Okay.
But they were long, and they were running away, like in toward town. So then we went in farther. We went in further, and then we ran into these civilians in there. That's the ones that are in the picture with us there. That picture, you see the 2 or 3 civilian men?
Yeah.
We met them. So I had with one of the guys I think that I had with me was Bailey, who was from Massachusetts, which is there's a lot of French-speaking people in Massachusetts. So I always used to use Bailey for interpreter. So I asked Bailey to talk to them, and they told us that the Germans were pulling out, and they were going up to the Citadel.
Yeah, okay.
There on the hill above St Tropez. So he said that they were all seemed to be going up there. So he said, it looks like that's all. So then I went back. We looked around, and that's when we heard that. And we said, well, that's what the captain wants. So we went back, and I told Captain Walls. So I said, well, it sounds like they've pulled out of town, that they're all up in the Citadel. And I said, so at least we go into town. So he said, all right. So then we slowly moved in with the company. Now we got in. Now I don't know. I don't know if I sent you that picture of in St Tropez. I'm seeing some soldiers standing around.
I don't think so. You sent me one of the little patrol going into town, but I don't think. Or is that the one you're talking about? Well, there's 2 or 3 soldiers standing there. Like being careful, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what I think it was. That was later on when we went in there, and they held us up. There was a machine gun fire from up ahead.
Okay.
A German machine gun. We heard it. So they held us. There were men ahead of us. Another platoon was ahead of us. So we held up there, and that's what we were waiting for, to find out what was going on. In the meantime, I sent the runner up to find out, to see what was going on up there. And he had come back, and he said, they're held up. There's a machine gun up there. And he said, they're trying to flank around it. So then, but then right later on again, they passed the word back. We were moving up, and we moved up. And we went actually into St Tropez. But then the Germans were up in the Citadel.
Yeah.
Now, we were down below, with the town square there in St Tropez, and of course there were buildings between us and the Citadel, so you were safe. But if you walked out to either side, where those streets that look up toward the Citadel, they shoot at you.
Okay.
I had been up on the roof and I had up those buildings there, and they were shooting back at the Germans in the Citadel. Then we were there, and then I said, see, Captain Walls was new. He was a replacement. Our commander who had been our company commander for years, Capt Bettner, he had been rotated home. Okay. And they sent the replacement as Captain. And that Southern France was Captain Wall's first combat. He had never been in combat before that.
Okay.
And I said, I hope that this new company commander, Captain Walls, doesn't decide that we're going to saw up that Citadel, because there's no cover there. There's no just short grass and little bushes. I mean, you'd be a sitting duck going up that hill,
Yeah.
A big long hill going up. I said, they'll pick us off like flies up there. So then we said, well, let's hope he doesn't get any ideas about attacking. But then he called a meeting. Captain Walls called a meeting, and of the platoon leader, the officers. And he said, what do you guys think? So of course we said we had all been in combat before except him. So we said, that's murder. If we go up that hill, we said, Cap, that'll be murder. They said we said those Germans are masters of machine gun fire. They'd mow us down like flies, So he said, that's what he said. I looked at it. He said, doesn't look good to me. He said, look. He said, we know that they're landing. We could see them, out. And when we first landed, we were getting fired on by our own ships. Our Navy was through shell. They did, of course, we weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be at Lemoyne. So our own ships threw some shells into the hills up near us. See? So we said, the Navy's out there, and I said, by morning they will probably have a land party landed, with a radio, and they can direct fire. And I said, we can have the ships fire heavy artillery into if the Germans hold the Citadel, we can have them put heavy fire on it from the ships, and then even put fire smoke shells and smoke it so they can't see us, and then we can attack up the hill and take it. In the meantime, they may land tanks. And they said, so Captain Walls agreed. He said, yeah. He said, I can't see any sense. He said, of losing a lot of men going up that hill. He said, for a matter of another 12 hours. He said, they're up in the castle. But he said, I don't like to be in this town because he said we're like pinned in with the water in one side of us, and if the Germans do have tanks or something, he said, they could catch us in here. And he said, I think we better pull back out to the hills,
okay,
out to the woods there. So we said, we agreed. We said, yes, that's exactly what we think, So then that's what we started to do. He said, all right, we'll pull out of here. And he said, we'll go back up. And he said, then we'll see who lands tomorrow. And he said, if we can contact the people landing, he says, they'll have artillery and so on. And he said, they can do a job, give us some support. Then if they want, we can attack, So in the meantime, we started walking back up to the hills, and then somebody in the rear of the column said, hey, look. And we turn around, look, and there we see somebody up in the Citadel in a window, and they're waving a sheet on a pole.
Okay, yeah.
White flag.
Yeah.
So we turned around, and we went back. And then Captain Walls took Lieutenant Mike O'Brien and about 6 guys and sent them up there and met the Germans at the entrance to it, And then they said they want to surrender. And then I have a picture. Did I send that picture to you of them walking down the hill?
Yeah. The one of them walking down the hill. You sent it to me. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And that's when they surrendered. And they said there were German Marines and all. There was a mixture of little bits of everything and anything there, So they came down and we marched them down. And we turned them. Then we had the prisoners there. We didn't know what to. So we turned them over. There was an FFI unit there in St Tropez.
Yeah.
So we turned them over to that. FFI unit. They took the prisoner.
Okay. And I remember you mentioning that one guy was killed, a sergeant in St Tropez.
Yes. What was his name now? Good friend of mine, Sergeant.
And at what point in this battle did that happen? At the point when you guys were in the houses sniping back and forth at the Germans, or what?
When we were sniping at them, and we were in, I think that was, I'm not sure if I can't remember whether it was a hotel or what that was facing the Citadel, and we were up in there.
Okay.
And then this Lieutenant Mike O'Brien, he had been sergeant in that platoon, and he and this sergeant were real good friends. They were buddies, also very good friends for years, And then he was up there with them, and they were in a window. And then the story I heard, I think it was Mike O'Brien told me later. He said, what was it? His name was Sgt Joseph. What was his name? Golly, I know his name. I can't. I'm old now. I forget things. But anyway, I knew him well. good friend of mine too. So he turned around and he was standing like back from a window looking up. And all of a sudden he said, Mike, he said, hand me a rifle. He said, I see one. So Mike O'Brien handed him a rifle, and he was there in the window, and he says, all of a sudden, he said, Mike says, he saw all of a sudden there was a splat, like a sound, like a crack, and he said, and he went down on the floor, and he looked at him, and he had caught him like in the side of the head, up high in the side of the head. He said the whole side of his head was gone. Okay. And he died almost instantly there.
So he was shot by a sniper then, eh?
Yeah, hit. Now, whether it was an aim shot or just a lucky shot, who knows, you know? But he was killed. Yep, he was killed.
Okay. And you don't remember his name right now? The Joe something you said. I can look him up on the list. I can probably find his name on those lists of honor roll, you know?
Yeah. Joe. His first name was Joseph, I know.
Okay. I'll look him up. And some other pictures you sent me are those pictures taken in Antibes of you guys driving in on trucks. What can you tell me about that place? Anything in particular?
Oh, what? You know, it was we went. It's fun. We went in, you know, up in through Cannes, and then
I think you just drove all the way to Antibes on the same day, as far as I know.
And then they turned around, and then they asked us to wait, and then we had to go in the next day. And by then they had brought trucks up and jeeps and everything, and we went in, and that was like the you know. And I have other pictures taken in that area there, and that was where the people came out, and they were bringing trays and glasses of wine on it, and fruit and everything, and giving it to us and throwing us fruit and so on. And you know, the big victorious entrance into Cannes and down the line and Antibes and all those, and every one of those towns as we went through it, of course, we were welcomed, and they were so glad to see us, you know.
Okay, yeah, of course.
And that's what that was. That was the, you know, going in with these sort of people there standing along the road, they were cheering us, and every time the trucks stopped, the girls would all run up on the trucks and giving kisses to our men, kissing our men.
Okay, so you guys like that, eh?
Oh, that's when they named it the Champagne Campaign.
Okay. And just one little detail again about that castle. I know. So you guys captured the castle, and I think, did you mention last time that on the same day the Germans sent a patrol up to see what was going on, or they kind of made a little counterattack there or something? Or am I mistaken?
There was a fight somewhere up in that area. I just be somewhere beyond that castle somewhere. I don't know where. We stayed. We took the castle, and they kept us there. And then they moved the other two companies. They moved them forward. And somewhere up there, I remember there was a fire. I understand there was a fire. In fact, I heard them. I heard firing going on up there. And they said they I don't know whether it was a rear guard action or a patrol counteract, but there was some fighting up in there. Yep.
Okay. And earlier on you were saying that none of your guys got killed, but didn't you mention that one guy called Davison or something was killed on that day, or Davis, something like that?
Or Davis, or something with David. We had a David, a Davis, a couple of Davises and Davies, and I can't. But his name was one. Yeah, with Dave, with his name Dave or Davy in his name.
And do you know what happened to him exactly? How he was killed?
I believe it was a mortar. I believe he got a mortar shell fragment in the back of his head, I believe.
Okay. And then I want to ask you a couple of questions. I was looking at the Detrez book the other day, and I saw that a guy called Mike Reuter, a lieutenant apparently, he took several pictures that are in the Detrez book, just taken around that Castle Hill, you know. And I was wondering, do you know if I guess Mike Reuter isn't alive anymore, right?
I haven't been to any of the reunions, but he used to come to all the reunions.
Okay,
and he used to, and he sent now. He even sent some pictures to me.
Okay.
I know he had a camera up there with him too, and he took some pictures because I exchanged pictures. I sent some pictures to him, and he sent some pictures to me, and I used to see him at the reunions.
And the reason I'm asking you this is, do you know any way of getting those pictures that he took, basically? Like, I don't know if you have them, or do you know if he has any family, or where he was from, or any way to contact him, his old address, or something like that?
I think I have his address. I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere. I believe I have his address. I used to write. I used to send Christmas cards to him, and as I say, I sent pictures to him, and he sent pictures to me.
Okay.
So,
and do you know?
I haven't heard from in the past. See, I stopped going to reunions. I just got too old. I'm 91.
Okay.
I just can't make. I can't. So, and a lot of those people I used to write to and hear from. I don't hear from over the years. We just stopped. Now I haven't heard anything from him in a couple of years.
Okay.
So I don't even know if he's alive.
But maybe even if he's not alive anymore, maybe I could try to get in touch with his children, or they probably kept the pictures or something, and maybe they could send me some copies of that. I'd be interested to try to get in touch with him.
Yeah, I'll look and see if I have what the last address I have for him is.
Okay. And another guy I wanted to ask you about was Lieutenant Nunna Lee. Apparently he's still alive. Do you have any idea about that, or? Did you know Nunna Lee? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a Lieutenant Nunna Lee. He was a replacement, but he wasn't with us very long at all. I remember.
Okay.
Very young looking. He looked like a high school kid.
Okay.
He was very young looking.